Hello everyone, welcome to the Mercury Virtual. Hope you are doing good. Today I am going to continue with the same module, that is the business research or office system development or the office solution development. In the last class or in the last to last class we have started this module and we covered some topics of the office solution development. Today I'm going to cover with the same module, that is office system development or office solution development, but with the new topics, new concept. So let's start with the previous class session, or let's start with the beginning of the chapter, that is office solution, that is introduction to the office solutions. There are three parts in this. We have studied one part only, that is office automation executable, then office add-in, then code behind the office development. So let's start the session again. So I'm so sorry for the delay because there is some bandwidth problem, internet problem. So let's start with the session. Don't waste time with the explanation. So let's start with the session. So in this module, we are going to study Larry for you, because you are the new in this, we can say the module. So in this module, we are going to study what are the various solutions, various development solutions to the office. So various office solution development. So there are three basic patterns that we understand, or that we are able to understand in the office system development. First is the office automation executable. That is, what is the office automation executable, or how we are making the office automate, or how we are making the office as the automate for by considering the executable file. So by using the executable file, that is the exe file, we make the office development as a automation. The next is the office add-in, that is what are the various additional features, that is the add-ins are used in the office environment so that the office will maintain, or the development will maintain at a high scale. That is the office add-in. Then code behind an office document. So first is executable will be maintained. Then what are the various additional features, what are the additional concept, additional application that is used. Then what is the main code behind an office development, that is what is the main coding that is used behind an office development. So there are three, these are the three basic patterns of the office solutions. An office executable is a program. So now let's start with the office executable. So it is a program, nothing but it's a program, that is a set of the instructions that separates from the office, that controls and automates an office application. So whatever the application, whatever the tool that is using, that tools is used as an office application, that tools is used as an office environment that automates and control an office application. An automation executable can be created with development of these things, with developing the tools such as a Visual Studio. So this automation executable can be carried out, can be created whenever we are developing the tool. So with the help of the development tool, such as Visual Studio. So Visual Studio is a tool application that is used to create the automation tool, that is used to create the automation executable code. A typical example is a standalone console application or the Windows Form application that start up an office application. So any standalone application, any console application that is used, that is a part of the Windows Form application that start up the office application, that automates the work, that automates the perform task. So it is nothing but an executable file that makes the automation task very easily. To start a solution built this way, so this is one of the important lines. So to start a solution built in this way, the user of the solution starts the automation executable. So whatever the executable files, whatever the automations file that will that we have discussed. So to start a solution, to make the solution built in this way, the user of the solution starts the automation executable. So first of all, it is using the automation executable that process the data, that executes the data, which in turn start up the office application. So first of all, it is used for the automation executable, then at last, or then afterwards, this is used to start up the office application. Unlike the two other patterns that is used, the automation code does not run in the office process. So unlike these two patterns, that is add-in and the office automation executable, this code, that is automation code, does not run in the office process, but it runs in its own process and talks across the process to the office process being automated. So whatever the process that is being automated, that is used with the office environment, that is used with the office automation executable, that runs its own process and talks about the cross process to the office, that is being executed or automated. An add-in in a class, or any add-in is a class in an assembly. So add-in is nothing but a class, that is a DLL, that Office loads and creates when needed. So it is on the demand. So whenever there is a demand, whenever there is a need, so Office loads and create whenever it is a needed. That is known as the add-in. And add-in runs in process with the Office application instead of requiring its own process, that is separate from the Office application process. So add-in any additional login, so that is known as the add-in, that runs in the process with the Office application. So that is the Office that runs in a process, or that's a process that runs with the Office application instead of requiring its own process separate from the Office application process. That is, it requires its own process that is used for the Office application process. To start a solution built in this way, the user of the solution starts the Office application associated with the add-in. So whatever the Office application, whatever the scenario that is using, so they use the Office application that is associated with the add-in subject. Office detects the add-in on the startup and loads them. So whatever Office detects the registered startup, so whatever the registered startup, that is a legal startup, that detects the login, that detects with the add-in and then loads them into the CMOS or into the Office development. An add-in can customize an Office application in the same way that code behind a develop document can. So whatever the add-in that is used for the add-in process, that is used for the executable process, that loads the or customize the Office application in the same ways that the code behind a document can do. However, code behind a document unloads when the document associated with the code is closed. So if the code behind the document unloads, or if the code behind the document is not loaded, so the document associated with the code is closed, and can add-in can remain unloaded or can remain loaded throughout the lifetime of the Office application. So throughout of the lifetime of the Office application, that add-in remains loaded into the document. The code behind the pattern was popularized by the Visual Basic for the application. So the code, whatever the code that is used behind the pattern, was used behind the that is Visual Basic for applications, that is a VBA. There is a simple development environment that is included with the Office. So this is the simple development requirement that is included with the process with the Office, that enables the developer to write Visual Basic code. So that enables the developer to write whatever the Visual Basic code that is used against the object model of a particular Office application, and associate that code with a particular document or template. So whatever the document template that is used with a particular document or the template, that is used with the VBA, that is a Visual Basic for applications. A document can be associated with the C# or the VB, or Visual Basic code, behind using the Visual Studio 2005 tool for VSTO. So this Visual Basic is also used as a VSTO, that is a Visual Studio for the Office. And to start a solution built this way, the users of the solution opens a document that has a code. So what's the need of the requirement, or what's the requirement? So they open the Office environment that is used in this way, that has a code behind it, and it creates a new document from a template that has code behind it. The code behind the document will customize an Office application. So whatever the code that is given, that is used with the Office application, that is customized with the Office application, that presents the document is an open or the associated code that occurs while the document is open. So when the document is open, that is used with the content, that is used with the OK buttons, that is used with the legal buttons, that is used for opening the document, and whatever the associated code that is used with the event that occurs when the document is open. We discussed two advanced patterns later in this book. So server document pattern involves running code on a server to manipulate the data stored in Office application or document. So whatever the application, whatever the document file that is used in this one, that is using the Office applications. VSTO makes this scenario possible through a feature known as the cache data. So VSTO makes that scenario, that makes that possible, or makes the scenario possible by using the cached data, that is the CACHD, cached data. The XML and the SLT pattern is similar to the server pattern or server document pattern and involve the writing code to generate Word or Excel documents in the word processing ML or spreadsheet ML format. So they are using the Word or the Excel document that is used in the word processing software or the spreadsheet ML format without starting the Office application. You can also generate these formats by applying the XLT transform to some XML data. Chapter 21 is used for this one. Then next is hosted code. That is, what is the hosted code? So whatever the add-in and the code that is used behind the pattern are sometimes known as the hosted code. So whatever the add-ins and whatever the code that is used or that is behind the pattern, that is known as the hosted code, which means that your code runs in the same process as the Office application. That your code remains the fixed, that your code remains the same, or that the code runs in the same process as the Office application, that is known as the hosted code. The next is the discovery of hosted code. So for the code to be run in the Office application process, the Office application must be able to discover the code. So whatever the code, whatever the Office application process code that is used to discover the code. So first of all, it discovers the code, then load the code into the process space and runs your code. So if whatever the application code that is used to or able to discover the code, load the code into the process space and here run your code. So first of all, discover the code, then load the code, then run your code. Office add-ins are registers in the window registry so that the Office can find and start them. So Office add-ins are also registers in the window registry and so that the Office can find and start the Windows registry format. Using the registry seems a little non.NET, but this is necessary because Office 2003 talks to add-in if they were COM objects. So if they were COM object, that is a code that is used, they are a part of the COM object that is used as a COM part through the COM interop. And the code that is used behind a pattern does not require a registry entry. So whatever the code, whatever the pattern that is required, that does not require a registry entry. Instead, the code is associated with the document by adding some special properties. So if some special properties are also added to the document, Office reads these properties when the document opens and then Office loads the codes associated with the document. So whatever the code, whatever the document that is going on, that is going to take the process, that is going to open the process, take the process, loads the codes that is associated with the document. Then next is context provided to the hosted code. So what is the main context that is provided to the hosted code? So it is critical that your hosted code get context. It need to get the application development, that is the OBJ. That is the OBJ means the application object that is used or the document object for the Office application into which it is loaded. So whenever the executable code get loaded, whenever the hosted code get contains, it need the application object or the document object for the Office application. So it needs the Office application, or the document object into which it is loading. COM add-ins are provided with the context through an interface. So whatever the COM add-ins that are provided with the context through an interface that is implemented by the add-in class. So COM add-ins are provided with the content that is available with the interface that has implemented as an add-in class. Outlook add-ins in VSTO are provided with context through a class created in the project. So whatever the object, whatever the class that is available, that is created with the class, that is created throughout the class, that is available to represent the application being customized. And the code that is used in the Visual Studio for the application that is provided with the content that requires the hosted code being customized. Now next topic is entry point for hosted code. That what is the main entry point? That whenever the Office startup, whenever the application starts, there is a hosted code that is firstly running in the application. So first code that is running in the startup code, that is known as the hosted code. So at the startup level, Office calls into the entry point where you can code or where code can run for the first time and register for the events that might occur later in the session. So Office calls into the entry point where your dream can run for the first time and register for the event. So whatever the event they are handling, so they register for the event that might occur later in the session. For a COM object or for a COM add-in, this entry point is the on connection. So whenever we are using the COM, they require the add-in connection that requires the add-in connection that is known as the on connection, that is a part of the IDTE, that is the IDTE Interface Development Technology Extensibility, that implemented by the COM add-ins. And for a VSTO Outlook add-ins and the VSTO code behind the document, this entry point is the startup event handler. So this point is a startup event handler that is used for preparing the VSTO code, that is used for the VSTO code that is used with the document, that is a part of the entry point, that is a startup event handler. Now next is how the code gets run after the startup. So when the startup is take place in with the hosted code, the how the code will execute or the how the code will run after the startup. So after the hosted code startup, the code continues to run. That is, the code will continue to run in the process in the following ways. Now, first of all, the code runs in response to the event raised by the office. So after the hosted code startup, the code will continue to run in the process, that is the office development process. The first that is the code runs in response to the event raised by the office. So whatever the event that is raised by the office, in that the code runs, that is the code runs in response to the event raised by an office. So the most common way that code runs after startup is in response to the event that occurs in the office application. So whatever the office application, whatever the startup process, that is in response to the event that occurs in the office application. For example, Office raises events when a document opens or cell in a spreadsheet changes. So this is one of the important lines. So Office is a part of the Microsoft Word or Excel is a part of the Office. So this says when an event occurs. So event occurs when a document opens or a cell in a spreadsheet changes. So if I open a document that is already created document in the Excel, MS Word document, or if I change the cell or change the content of the cell in a spreadsheet, that is known as the event. Now listing 1 to 24 shows a simple class that returns to the active event that Excel worksheet object raises. So Excel worksheet object also raises some application, some event that is used for the that is included in the listing 1 to 24. Typically you will hook up event listener such as the one shown in the listing 1 to 24 when the initial entry point of your code is code. So when the initial entry point is known as the code or your code is code, that entry point will run in response to the event that is raised by the office. The next is interface methods calls an object provided to the office. So first is the code runs in response to the event raised by the office. Then what are the various interface method that called an objects that is provided to the office. So objects such as the startup class for COM add-in implements an interface known as the IDTE. 2 that has a method that office calls during the run of the office application. So whatever the object that is a startup class for the COM add-in implements an interface that is known as the IDTE that has a method that the office calls during the run of the office application. So whatever the office application, whatever the call objects, whatever the object that is carried out, so they are using the IDTE COM object. For example, if the user turn off the COM add-in, so if there is a COM add-in that is turned off, office calls the on disconnection method on the IDTE to interface that is implemented by the COM add-in. So whatever the COM add-in that is required, that is used for the COM add-in part. In this way, additional codes also run after the initial entry point has run. So if there is an interface method that is required that calls an object that is provided to the office. Next, event raised on the code behind the class. So one is the interface method that is used with the object, or with the content. Then what are the various events that is raised on the code behind the class. In the same way that we have done in the two part, that is the interface method, then the code runs in response to the event raised by the office. Then event raised on the code behind the classes. So this is the classes generated in VSTO projects that represent the customized application. So whatever the classes that is generated in the VSTO, that is a Visual Studio tool for Office, that represent the customized application or document handles the startup and shutdown events. After the constructor or constructor of the class executes, Office raises the startup event. So that is the Office that raises the startup event, and when the document is about to be closed, so when the document is closed, Office raises the shutdown event. So whenever the class executes, it raises the startup event, that the event will be starting up, and when the document is about to close, Office also raises the shutdown event. So this is the part of the event. Whenever the event raised, that is a startup event. Whenever the document closed, that is a shutdown event. So there are two types of event in this that is used behind the class. One is the startup event, one is the shutdown event. And when the constructor is used with the class execute, that raises the startup event, and the document is about to be closed, that is known as the shutdown event. So startup and the shutdown event will be used. The classes generated in the VSTO project that represent the customized application or document handles the startup and the shutdown events. And whenever the construction of the class executes, Office raises the startup events. So startup events and the shutdown events. Next is how the code gets unloaded. So this topic is how the code gets run after the startup. So after starting up, how the code runs. This is how the code gets unloaded whenever it is executed. This I am going to take after 10 minutes because bandwidth is also low. Look, this signal. This is the so let's take a break right now. Then move to this topic, that is how the code gets unloaded. So let's take a break. So let's begin with the session after the break. Today's class is too short, I know, but yeah, Larry, my question is to you. Where were you in the last and the last to last class? Why have you not attended the class? Larry, are you able to hear me? Where were you in the last to last class? Okay, your car has a problem. All right, because in the last to last, okay, okay, not an issue. I'm just confirming where were you. So today's class is too short. So, anyways, we will continue with the Monday also. All right. So next topic is how the gets or the code gets unloaded. And Larry, you want a PDF for this module also, na? Okay. So first of all, I will send you a PDF because then I will forget that PDF. Here is Larry. Your ID are both of the IDs, that is the Larry and the Larry. The connection again lost. So this is a technical problem, again showing technical problems. So let's start with the session again. So Larry, just confirming, your ID are the both are the IDs that is available. Your both IDs you are receiving. All right, not an issue. So Larry, I have sent you a mail. All right. So let's begin with the session again. Uh, that is how the code gets unloaded. So when the code get loaded, now next is how the code get unloaded. So you may or your code gets unloaded in a number of ways depending on the development pattern you are using. So it depends on the development pattern you are using. Your code will be unloaded depending on the different patterns, different development pattern that you are using. And if you are using the automation executable pattern, your code unloads when the automation executable loads. So when you are using the, or if you are using the automation executable code, that is the exe code, so that is used for the executable pattern, executable pattern that is available for the code that unloads when the automation or when the automation executable has written or has written or you have written exists, so that the load the code, so that is used for the unloaded codes. And if you are using the add-in pattern, your code unloads when the office application exits or when the user turn off the add-in via an add-in management dialog. So if you are using the add-in patterns, that you are using the add-in pattern that is available, your code unloads when the application or when the application or office application exists or when the user turn off the add-in via add-in management dialog. So if the add-in management dialog available, that loads the data, that loads the add-in management dialog box. If you are using the code behind the pattern, your code unloads when the document associated with your code is closed. So if you are using the code that is available for behind the code, your code becomes unload when the document associated with your code is closed. So that is how the code get unloaded. So automatically it will unload the code, it will unload the pattern that is available, that is used with the office application that exists when the code will be used as an add-in management course or as an add-in management code in the hosted pattern. So this is the automated pattern that is used in the add-in pattern that is used, and in the hosted pattern of running code there is some method that is known as the event, or that is called, or the event that is raised. So whatever event that is raised or whatever the method that is raised, that is issued by the code, or the event that is raised notifying that you are about to be unloaded. So in a hosted pattern, this is also an event that is raised that you are about to be unloaded. And for the COM objects or the COM add-ins, office calls the on connection method. So office calls the on connection method that is available. And for VSTO, so for the con add-ins, or sorry, for the COM add-ins, office known as office calls the on connection method. So office calls the on disconnection method that is available. And for VSTO code behind the document and Outlook add-ins, office raises the shutdown event. So for the COM object, it uses the on disconnection method. Remember that which method is used, that is the on disconnection method. And for the VSTO code, which method is used, that is the shutdown event is used, or office raises the shutdown event. So there are two methods, there are two parts. One is in the COM method that uses the on disconnection method. One is the VSTO code that uses the shutdown method or shutdown event before your code is unloaded. So that the user will know whether that the code will become unexecuted or will get that the code gets unloaded. So that either using the on disconnection method or either using the shutdown event. Now next is office automation executable. That is, what are the various office executables that is used, that is available with this one. Larry, are you able to hear me? My voice is clear to you? Hello. Okay, Larry. So this section consider each of these three patterns of the office solution in more detail. What are the three patterns, Larry, that is discussed in this office solution? Can you guess what are the three patterns that we have discussed in the first page? One is office automation executable. Then next is, remembered? No? These are the three codes that is used. Methods, that is the office automation executable, office add-ins, code behind an office document. So one is the office automation executable, one is the office add-ins that is used, one is the code behind an office document. So these are the three methods that is used with the office solutions, right? So this section considers each of these three patterns of Office solutions in more detail. Office solution that uses the automation executable pattern, startup an Office application in very straightforward manner. So whatever the Office application that uses the automation executable pattern startup that an application uses, that an application is used in a straightforward manner by creating the new instance of the application process. So this section considers each of these three patterns in detail, that is automation, add-ins, and the last one is behind an or code behind an Office development. So one is the executable, one is the add-in, one is the code. So Office solution that you need to. So first is Office solution that uses the first part, that is the automation executable pattern that start up an Office application in a very straightforward manner by creating a new instance of the application object being associated with the Office application. So whatever the Office application, whatever the new data, whatever the new instance that is used with the application object that is associated with the Office application. And because the automation executable controls the Office application, because it is the automation executable that controls the Office application, and the automation executable runs the code at startup at any time thereafter when executing the controls returns to the automation executable. So whatever the executable, whatever the code pattern that they are developing, they are using the code, they are using the content that is executing the control returns to the automation executables. And when an automation executable uses new to create an application object, so which executable will be used, that is a new to create an application object, the automation executable controls the lifetime of the application by holding the created application object in a variable. So by holding the application created or by holding the created application object in a variable, that uses the application object that makes the or that controls the lifetime of the application by holding the application object in a similar manner. Then the Office application determines whether it can shut down by determining the reference count or number of clients that are using its application object. So whether it's the duty of the it's the responsibility of the Office application that determines whether it can shut down by determining the reference count. So whether it is shut down, whether it can shut down by determining the reference count or number of clients that are using in its application object. That is Office application that determines whether the reference will be counted as a number of clients or not. In listing 2.1, as soon as it is used to create my Excel app variable, Excel starts and adds one of its counts to the client that it notes or that it knows are holding a reference to the Excel application object. That is using the or that is creating the my Excel application variable. In this, the Excel starts and adds to one of its counts of the client that it notes or it knows are holding a reference to the Excel application object. So whatever the Excel application object that holding a reference to the Excel application content. And when the my Excel application variable goes out of scope, that is the main exits, the .NET garbage collection releases the object and the Excel is notified that the console application no longer needs Excel application. That means there is a no application that is required with a no application object that releases the object, and the Excel is notified that the console application no longer needs Excel application object. Now this causes the Excel count of client holding a reference or to the Excel application object to go to the 0, and Excel exits because no clients are using the Excel anymore. So this is simple. It says that the new object is created to create the my Excel app variable. Now first of all, the Excel starts and add to the one of the client or add to the one of the count of the client that is available that it knows are holding a reference to the Excel application. And when the my Excel app variable goes out of space, that is when the main exits, the .NET garbage collection releases the object and the Excel is notified that the console application no longer needs the Excel application. So whatever the Excel application, whatever the content application that is required with the console application, that is required with the Excel application, that is known with the various group of the people that is executed in this code. So this is the Excel. Net is also again going. So this causes the Excel number of clients holding a reference to the Excel application object to go to the 0, and the Excel exit because the no clients are using the Excel anymore. So if the no clients are using the Excel anymore, they are using the Excel in two variable form. So first of all, it creates the object, then it releases the object whenever the Excel application is object is no required. And when you create an Office application by creating a new instance of the application object, the application startup without showing its window. That is used with the window that is used without the showing the window that the application exits, and they are using the Excel anymore, or they are not using the Excel anymore. That is a client data that is used with the client reference that is available with the client data. So it can be accessed, so it can be used with the client approach, so that it can be acceptable in the client manner, so that any variable, so any Office application can be created by using the new instances of the Office application object. Hello. Yeah, are you able to hear me, everyone? Hello. 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 Are you able to hear me, everyone? Hello.